What is a good weakness to mention on a job interview? Honesty. I don't think honesty is a weakness. I don't give a fuck what you think. I need to say this in an interview before I die. Plot twist, you get hired for the job as a geriatric. I was asked this during an interview with Uber, and I was completely caught off guard. I ended up fumbling and saying something along the lines of I cannot ride a unicycle, for which I immediately regretted. I would have burst out laughing at that if I was interviewing you. No kidding, I can appreciate a little humor during the interview. Just don't try to pull the same stunt on every question. I interviewed a girl once, and she said honestly, cake. I can never say no to it. She was so genuine and the answer struck us all as honestly hilarious. We hate those corporate interview questions too. It was more about finding someone who could answer questions like a real person, and had some sort of personality show through. It's amazing how many people just couldn't answer certain questions, as though they were so nervous to get it wrong they froze up. In another interview, my boss asked a candidate, tell me about a time you screwed up at work. She thought for a while, and said, gosh, I'm sorry, there are certainly times, but there's nothing major that comes to mind at the moment. I'll think on it while we do other questions. That's what we wanted as interviewers, not a perfect answer, just people that seemed comfortable and normal. Lol. Tell me about a time you screwed up at work. I ask this question, and then tell them about how I accidentally took down a regional data center, exposing a serious design flaw in our network. Being vague. Can you elaborate? Yeah. Edit. Wow, was having a not so cool day, but got here to see I got my first gold. Thanks, stranger, now to figure out what it does. Asterisk probably. Asterisk that is certainly something I could look into for you. You're hired. I once got a job, partly because of my honest answer to this. I need to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't like being told to do something without an end game in mind, without knowing the reasoning behind it. When I work, I need something to aim at. Some employers don't like this, because they like their employees to be cogs in a machine they control. I don't like those jobs and I don't want them. The place I was applying to was not that kind of workplace, and they liked my answer. Ended up being a great job where my boss valued my input and trusted me to take the reins on a variety of tasks. Edit. Oh, wow. Thanks for the gold and silver. RIP my inbox. This is me. I'll help my husband with projects in the garage, working on the car, building things, etc. And I always want to know why, or how we are doing it. It drives him crazy, because he doesn't want to stop work to explain it. He was in the army, and trained to just do what he was told without question, but I can't function like that. I can't mindlessly do something without knowing what its purpose is. My life growing up. Helped my dad with chores and animals every weekend, and never knew when we would be stopping, or if I had more, after I finished my current task. It helped my work ethic in the long run, but dang, I'm laying it all out there when my kids get older. We gonna mow, pull weeds, and mulch. Should take 4 hours and we'll get ice cream afterwards. Done. My dad was the same, drove me nuts. And there was never ice cream at the end. Lol. Depends on the position, but I will sometimes say that I have trouble delegating when I know I can perform a task well. I'd rather just do it myself and know that everything will be done correctly. Edit. Thank you for the various precious metals. I realize this advice can backfire. That's why I said sometimes. There is also a way to phrase this that makes you sound better. I'm the same way. I'd be afraid to say this in an interview though, because it could be interpreted as not a team player. I wouldn't say I'm not a team player, but I do have a hard time working with a lazy team that does shitty work. It's a pretty good answer. I've both used it and heard it in interviews, and it always comes off as introspective and insightful, as long as you say how you're planning to deal with this. There's nothing wrong with saying that you have a hard time working with a lazy team, if you reword it, such as saying you have high standards for yourself as well as for others, and often find yourself pushing yourself or your team harder than necessary, even if you're not the team leader. To improve on this, you're learning to delegate and/or plan out team responsibilities or some such. Weak against fire and sharp objects. Underrated comment. We'd make pretty bad Pokemon, weak to fire, water, electricity, grass, ice, rocks, the ground, steel, fighting, poison, flying, falling. If dragons, fairies, ghosts, and psychics existed, we'd probably be weak to them too. Some people are even additionally weak to bugs in the dark. There's nothing that we are actually good at. We are the ultimate glass cannon. Even less resilient than glass, but also invented the cannon edit. It was supposed to be a light-hearted thing, but since two people have questioned the glass part, here we go. Humans generally don't fight to the death, or to the faint. That's pretty much why we think we'd lose against most animals half our size. To them, they could walk away with a broken leg, a missing leg, and a gash across their face and count it a victory. Most of us would admit defeat at first, almost blood. And it doesn't take very much to get to that point. So we are not talking about the force needed to break a femur or dislocate an elbow. We are talking about how easy it is to damage soft and squishy skin. Furthermore, glass isn't even that weak. It's just that we usually see it in millimeters thick sheets or being hit by hard objects. You can wail on a glass pan the thickness of your forearm all day and not do much to it unless you smashed it on the hard floor. And if you've ever skidded down a road or even a smooth ice stone surface, that's not fun for a human either. I'm terrible at interviews. I'm bad at interviews. I guess I don't do them very often. I have typically stayed at previous jobs for a long time. Says here on your resume. No, you don't. Can you explain what happened at your last position? It says here you were employed from the 10th of December 2018 until 3:45 p.m. The building was on fire and I didn't do it. If you are changing industries, your biggest weakness is not knowing the industry yet. If you are younger, say inexperience. Anything to show your willingness to learn and develop. I got my current job after I said this. The interviewer asked me if I had any questions or concerns about the position. I said, I'm a quick and eager learner, but, I'll be honest, I have absolutely no experience in this industry, so training me will need to be from the ground up. Will that be an issue? And that's how you do it, folks. When I was graduating college, I got interview tips from my dad, who was heavily involved in the hiring process at his company for his department. His advice on this one, which I've used ever since, and has gone great, was, the whole say a weakness that's actually a positive has been done to death, and is such common knowledge, that it's no longer a clever trick, and is now seen as avoiding the question. People want to see some self-awareness. Obviously don't bring something absolutely terrible up, but mention a real flaw and most importantly what you've done to address, or work with it. For example, the one I tend to use is that I can be forgetful, so I now keep multiple sets of calendars, reminders, notes, etc. to cover as much as possible. I did the same thing when I got my current job. I told them I have ADHD, but it's not too much of an issue, as it has forced me to become incredibly organized, and keep notes and checklists and calendar reminders, so I rarely forget stuff, and I'm more organized than most. The only problem is that I sometimes worry about whether I've forgotten something anyway, and need to double check things. Edit. Well, this blew up. I'm obviously not saying that everyone should disclose all their disabilities, but if you have it under control, and can actually put a positive spin on it, such as me being even more organized than the average person, because the ADHD forces me to, you can maybe get away with it. I'm also not American, so there's obviously some cultural/legal differences to consider as well, which is why my post was a reply to someone else, not a separate suggestion. Only use this if you actually have ADHD,